We're going to talk about understanding and managing depression. Can anybody tell me what depression is? I'll take two answers, two attempts. You might be successful, you never know. What is depression? Yes.
A state of like constant sadness.
Yes, good word. Like use the word constant and sadness, right? Those are both very important. The amount of time and the depth of the sadness, right? That emotion. Yes.
Yeah, being sad and isolated from people for a long time without reason.
Well, you said I coughed.
Being sad or isolated
from people.
Yeah, for a long time and without a strong reason or a cause.
Oh. Okay. I mean, being sad, isolating from people, yeah. But often there is a cause sometimes. For example, what if someone, God forbid, that you love died?
No, I mean without strong reason.
Without
clear.
Yeah.
Something strong make you sad for a long time.
Yeah. So this is like depression. You may not know the reason, but there is a reason, but you may not know it. And one thing we'll talk about later, and I like your points about isolating from people. That's a very good one. I want us to be a little careful about judging the reasons. Be careful about judging the reasons. Yes.
I just want to add something. Like,
Sure.
It can be like an imbalance of hormones as well.
Absolutely.
And then it can also be like situational depression, where, like you said, you have grief in your family, or you have a situation that makes you depressed, and then can
Yes.
be like the time frame.
Yeah, there's one of the depressive disorders. Actually, when they say, so I don't mean to be offensive in any way, but when they say that a woman is PMSing, right? Like they say that, people say that, but that's not exactly right. That's not exactly right. There's actually for I think it affects maybe 20% of women, that there's a premenstrual dysphoric disorder, right? That's very easily treated with medication, like very high success with medication. But that's like a situational type thing, right? It's not like something bad actually happened, but the hormones are changing, right? Also, there's many other chemical imbalances in the brain that are not hormone related, but other chemicals that are changing in the brain. Also, there's seasonal depression, right? Seasonal affective disorder, right? So people, in California, the sun is always out most of the time, right? But it's not like that in other parts of the country, like in New York. Like I have a client, she's on the East Coast, and after summer passes, she enters into a very deep, a lot of things just keep her low all the time, right? Because of the seasons changing, the sunlight, and all these things. Yeah, very good. And also, of course, something could actually happen. Like, let's say, for example, you experience a big failure. You you were studying for a big exam, and you were studying so hard, and then you failed. What am I missing? What? Nothing? Okay. All right. So, you guys with me so far? So we're getting there, right? So, what is depression? Depression is heavy sadness that affects your ability to function. I'm talking about right now, like basically clinical depression, right? Clinical depression is something you get diagnosed with, major depressive disorder. It affects your ability to function and lasts 2 or more weeks. Okay, lasts 2 or more weeks. This is like the general, for a non-professional, the general description of clinical depression. Okay. I'm also going to tell you what the criteria are. Again, I'm just trying to give you the information. You could always Google this. All right, you're not supposed to become an expert. But some of the things that you would experience, for someone to be diagnosed, they'd have to have 5 of the following for a 2-week period, right? Depressed mood, loss of interest or pleasure in almost all activities, either based on your own evaluation or on the observation of others. Imagine someone says, "Oh, I noticed that you've been crying a lot more, or you're not coming to things anymore." That is also can be included in the criteria. Significant unintentional weight loss or weight gain, or decrease or increase in appetite. Sleep disturbance, psychomotor changes, like you're not able to like someone who's depressed might actually, their movement will change. Tiredness, fatigue, low energy. A sense of worthlessness or excessive, inappropriate, or delusional guilt, right? Like sometimes, I'll give you, I remember a woman, she lost her husband, and I was talking with her, and we'll talk about, grief is, by the way, a very important topic. We should talk about that another time. It's a big, beautiful topic. Grief and sex are two topics we don't talk a lot about in our community, right? And we need to talk more about them, okay? Very important, okay? So, when someone dies, it creates in a person a very normal process, which is you do a review of the whole relationship from beginning to end, right? And that's very normal, it's fine. But what ends up happening is you discover so many uncommunicated or undelivered emotional messages. Like, let's say, God forbid, like for example, I lost my father, passed away in 2014. There's so many things I wish we said to each other, right? So many things. But we didn't, right? And this is normal too. Some things I wish we said them, and some things you couldn't say them, because just because you want to say something doesn't mean the other person is ready to listen, right? Even if they're alive, they're not ready to listen, right? Like if you want to, for example, we said, like you're going to go talk to, someone's giving an example about talking to parents, right? And to advise them. You want to tell them the right thing, but they're not ready to listen. So, and who knows? People might die. And those messages were never delivered. And what's going to happen with the kids of that parent? Right? So, so she was thinking about all this, and she started to feel intense guilt. Oh, I should have done this for my husband. I should have done that for my husband. I should have done this. I should have done that. And this guilt was pulling her down so much, right? And so that is, and of course she started to feel like I was basically saying I was a terrible wife. Well, she wasn't. She was a very good wife, right? So that's another thing, like an example of excessive guilt. An impaired ability to think or concentrate, and recurrent thoughts of death or suicide ideation, right? So that's one of the criteria, is having 5 of these things. Another one is the symptoms affect your functioning. They're not attributed to a substance, and they're not better explained by another disorder, and there hasn't been a manic episode, which is a technical point, cover later. But the reason why I'm showing you this, as always, is show you this criteria, right? And what I want you to see is, like, look at all these little pieces. All of us have experienced some of these symptoms, right? Like here and there. I'm sure all of us at some point have felt worthless, or like a lot of guilt. Maybe guilt for a good reason. Maybe you did something wrong, right? And you feel so guilty, right? Even we talk about someone sins, and sometimes we say, but it doesn't have to be. Sometimes we use the devil's name too much, right? It doesn't have to always be the devil. But sometimes we say, oh, the devil overcomes you with guilt, right? And you feel like, oh, I can't approach God anymore, right? So, but sometimes it's not the devil. Sometimes it's just us. So, how does depression develop? Number 1 is adverse life events. By the way, this lecture is shorter. I already planned it for it to be shorter because I already started hearing the feedback from last night that you guys can't handle all this content. So, adverse life events. Any loss is an adverse life event. Let's say, for example, you had to move to another state. You lost your home. You lost your community. Actually, many people who come from Egypt, they just came. They left everything. And sometimes they didn't have, it wasn't part of their general plan. It was just, they won a lottery and they got to get up and go. They got the opportunity, they got to go, right? They don't have time to say bye to all these people, all this stuff and everything. And sometimes the next time they're going to see their parents, might be in a few years. Or maybe they're going to miss a wedding of a sibling because they can't go, right? I was just talking to someone last week. She got married. Her brother didn't get a visa to come and attend her wedding. And she's so close with her brother. And this is a loss, right? You guys with me so far? Like, these are real things. It's not nothing, right? So somebody comes from Egypt, you don't know like what they're going through, what they gave up. Like you have no idea. And then imagine the loss of confidence, because when you were back, if they were back home, they used to know how to take care of themselves. They have an issue, they know where to go, they know what to do. Here, they don't know who to call. So this loss of being able to take care of yourself is very hard, right? Loss of income, loss of all these things. Imagine you get laid off. Some people become depressed because they have the adverse life event of being laid off, right? These are real things. Death, trauma, divorce, isolation and lack of support, and disappointment. You could be disappointed in yourself or another person, right? Like, for example, if you find out, God forbid, you find out that your spouse cheated on you. That's a big loss, it's very traumatic, and there's major disappointment in the other person. And you may see that you contributed to that, so that will be disappointment in yourself, and that can make you depressed, right? Imagine a young person that you're serving, their parents are getting a divorce, or their parents are having a hard time. That's not. There's a lot of issues there, right? How else does depression develop? Poor sleep can make you more susceptible to becoming depressed, right? Because when you're more tired, you're less resilient. You're more likely to just see things in a negative way. Like you're just tired, you know. Not everyone, of course. Poor stress management, medical conditions. I remember when I was in therapy school, we had a whole class on how to deal with medical issues, right? Because not just for the person who's experiencing the medical issues, but the person who is caring for the person with the medical issues, right? Can you imagine? Like, I remember when my grandfather, before he passed away, there came a point in the last year or two of his life, he couldn't really take care of himself. So he stayed with one of his daughters and her family. And it's a lot of work to care for a sick person. And all that work, I'm not saying she became depressed, but all that work can make someone very depressed, right? And you don't see the person getting better, right? So, and also usually what happens, because the person who is sick is also very low, they're not very encouraging. They don't say, "Oh, thank you for cleaning after me when I went to the bathroom." They don't say that. Maybe they're ashamed, right? Are you guys with me so far?
Yeah.
I know I'm using very down topics, but we're all servants here, right? We move towards the down topics, right? We need to. That's what we do as servants, right? Medication side effects can lead to depression, brain chemistry, genetics. There's a high correlation. If one of your siblings has depression, then you'd have depression. Alcohol use. Alcohol is called a depressant. It's a substance. It's a depressing substance, right? So of course, not any one of these things you could use them or experience them and not become depressed. But these are things that can cause depression. What does the Bible? I only have 7 slides, guys. All right, or 8 slides. So we're gonna get there. What does the Bible say about depression? The Bible says that you will face challenges in life. Part of the challenge, the biggest deception that we sometimes even encourage is that on earth, the goal of God is to make you happy. God's goal is to make you happy, right? God, this is not our place. We're not even citizens. That's why we say we're sojourners. Our citizenship is in heaven, right? This is not, we're like aliens here. You guys know Aliens? You ever see Aliens in the movies? Aliens. Huh? You've seen that, right? Aliens, it's when we talk about, imagine if aliens landed on Earth. They'd come and they wouldn't recognize anything. They wouldn't speak the language. That's actually what we are here. We are aliens, right? We were not made, this wasn't the life we were made for. So if you think that life here is supposed to be the best thing ever, then you're already exposing yourself to severe disappointment, right? And Jesus told us, in this world you will have tribulation. In Matthew chapter 10, he told the apostles, he said, beware of men, for they will deliver you up to councils and scourge you in the synagogues. But God does not intend for you to be sad forever, right? Like, he doesn't, God also doesn't want you to be sad either, right? It's just the primary goal is not your happiness, it's your holiness. Let me just say that again. God's primary goal is not your happiness, it's your holiness, okay? Like, because the goal is at the end, we all die, we're all gonna die, but you go to heaven. That's why we say in the liturgy, we say the creed all the time. What's the last phrase of the last sentence in the liturgy? We look for the resurrection of the dead and the life of the age to come. We're not saying we look for happiness on earth here and also there too in heaven. No. Yes?
I have a weird question.
Sure.
If life is meant to be tough, then what's the point of it?
The point of therapy? Like, life is not, we're not trying to make life hard. God is not trying to make your life hard. It's just that on earth, it's not supposed to fulfill everything that we were meant to be. So the point of therapy, it's kind of like if you break your leg, I mean, you still got to get through the next, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years of life. So you got to heal. Like, we are not seeking suffering. So we actually want to be as healthy as we can be, right? We want to take care of our body as much as possible. We want to be better. And also because our mental health affects our spiritual health. Like, so if someone, like for example, some people, because of how anxious they are, they pray in an unhealthy way. Like, every time they pray, because they're so anxious, they keep praying again. And every time they pray, they just keep thinking about the problem and they become more and more anxious, right? And then really the prayer is harming them. They say, no, wait. Listen, let me tell you something about prayer. Do you think when you pray, God says, what's your name? Mary. You think we don't name people Mary anymore. It's a nice name. I love that. Yeah, like when you think when you're praying, God says, "Oh, Mary, thank you for letting me know. I didn't know. Like, if you didn't pray that prayer, I would have been lost. Thank you for letting me know." No. What's the point of prayer? Prayer is not to change God. Prayer is not to inform God. God already knows. Prayer is to change me. When I pray, I change, right? God is not changing. God is not, He knows everything already. The point of prayer is for me to change. So that's what, and sometimes our mental health affects our spiritual health. And also imagine, someone who's depressed is very likely to see a lot of the things that Jesus said, to see them in a very negative way, right? To see him as a very bad person, right? Why are you saying tribulation? Don't you know how hard my life is? They don't have resilience. They don't have hope. They don't have optimism, right? So the general purpose of therapy is just to take care of yourself as a creature that's made by God. Is that helpful? Or yeah, you sure? Okay, yes.
I just wanted to add something to that
Yes.
as well. So I feel like sometimes we have so many emotions, and it's an example of that would be there's a closet and you have a lot of clothes and they're on the ground. And sometimes you need someone to help you hang up those clothes just so you can know what you're feeling and someone can help you get through that. So
Yeah.
that's just what I'm
Yeah. We all need to, it's literally, the answer is the same reason why you'd go to a doctor if you have a medical issue. That's it. It's the same exact answer. If you have an emotional issue, we need help. And we saw at the very beginning so many examples of Jesus ministering to all of the dimensions of the person, right? People go for a physical miracle, he provides spiritual and emotional healing, intellectual healing, social healing. Why? Because he cares about the whole person, right? He wants you to be well. Yes.
So, funny enough, I just made this connection now. I was thinking about it. Because I feel like a lot of the times depression comes from having unreasonable thoughts and not getting them out, right? You're stuck in a trap of your own thoughts. And I was talking about a different topic, about also like your own thoughts and thinking about like God's will and stuff like that. I was talking with 1 Timothy Paul from the Abbey, but he was telling me like one of the most important things to do as a Christian is to have a spiritual guide and to have friends to expose your thoughts to.
Yes.
So that they can correct you or they can, knock some sense into you and stuff like that. And so like, I feel like therapy is not just like, it's not just like something that came recently, but it's something we've been having in like the monastic life and then the Christian life for forever. Having a father of confession to talk to, having a spiritual guide to talk to. They're kind of like different forms of therapy.
Yeah, and maybe sometimes also, I want to acknowledge something, that there are many things that are therapeutic that are not therapy, right? Many things are therapeutic. Like, actually, if you could just go take a walk on the beach, right? And actually, Abuna in the sermon today told us about a woman who put her phone outside her room and said, I'm going to spend 30 minutes to pray. That's very therapeutic, right? Not just from an emotional perspective, also from a spiritual perspective, right? You connect with God, the most important relationship you have in your life. You recenter yourself. You expose what's in your heart. You feel God's love. You feel heard, right? So there are many things that are therapeutic, right? But I would also tell you, to keep things balanced and to be complete, if a monk in the wilderness breaks his leg, he needs to go to a doctor, right? And of course, a miracle can happen. Of course, it can. God can do anything. But as we see, even in the wisdom of Sirach that we were reading, God tells us, do not neglect the physician, right? Like, everybody has a role. And God helps us to love each other and care for each other, right? We care for each other. Very important. Like, do you think when Jesus was doing the miracle of the 5 loaves and 2 fish, do you think he needed the apostles to distribute the bread and the fish? He didn't need them, but he used them, right? And that's what he does with all of us. You think God needs us, but he uses us, right? Okay. These are very good comments. Thank you. Great points. Thank you. He will support you. So actually, God does not intend for you to be sad forever, right? So he does help you in your struggles on earth. He tells you, and he also gives you the life to look forward to. He says, in this world you'll have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I've overcome the world, right? Like, this is not the end. There's something to come after this. And we have to have hope in eternal life. We have to. Because if you don't, that's why St. Paul said, he said, if we do not believe in the resurrection, we are of all men the most pitiable. It's literally the most depressing thing if this is the end. Because life on earth is not that great. It's not that cool, It's like all we do, we wake up, we're tired, work, study, we gotta deal with our bodies not working in the way we want them to all the time. You have responsibilities, money, cars, driving. It's just, what is this? This is a disaster. This is nothing. This is ridiculous, right? So what we're just trying to do is get through this life, right? With Christ, so that we can then be with him forever, where there's no tear and no struggle, no sorrow, right? Everything is good in heaven, right? He makes all things new there, right? So we're just trying to get through this the best we can, right? So, and he will support you. He said, come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your what? Souls. Wow. That word souls is on everything in the Bible is on purpose, okay? Is inspired by the Holy Spirit, right? This word souls is very important. He didn't say you're going to find rest just for your bodies. It's also your souls, right? For my yoke is easy. I said easy. And my burden is light, right? Is light, okay? Any questions about this? Okay, we're actually almost done. We have 10 more minutes, right? And then there's more questions, something else. All right. So I know I say that all the time, and then we have 4,500 minutes. All right. So what do we look for? What do you look for? When you're serving, I'm speaking to you as servants, What do you look for when you're talking with someone? Again, your goal, we said in the beginning, what are your goals? It's not to be diagnosing things. But you have to learn what's out there and start to be like, hey, something seems off. I need to lean into this, right? What do you look for? A change in mood. They all of a sudden, the person used to be, like they used to come and they used to make eye contact a lot. And now they're not making eye contact as often. Or they're looking down. They look sad. Their eyes are kind of like tearing up a lot, right? We don't know what's going on. Pay attention to those things, right? Sad appearance or typical manifestations of sadness. Change in involvement in usual activities. Like whatever you're used to seeing them in, all of a sudden they're not there anymore. What's going on? Like as a servant, your ears have to, like your antenna have to perk up. A change in weight, like we were talking about, right? Traumatic events. Like basically, if anybody experiences a traumatic event, for you as a servant, you just go. You just go, right? Like you find out someone is sick, went to the hospital, you show up at the hospital, right? You find out someone didn't pass an exam, you give them a call, ask about them, right? They lost a member of their family, text them, call them. What's going on? How are you doing? I'm here. Like what happened? Tell me, right? So whenever anybody experiences a traumatic event, act. Take action. Of course, I wish we had more time to talk about prayerful action, right? Because please, as a servant, we're spending all this time talking about mental health, but never do anything without prayer. This is critical. Because remember, you are not the one who's making a difference. It's God who makes a difference. Okay? God is the one who's ultimately working. That's why St. Paul said, Paul planted, Apollos watered, but who? God gives the increase. God is the healer. You're not the healer. I'm not the healer, right? We're just people who God is, trying to help out and using us, right? But he doesn't need us, like we said, right? So, whenever, like even sometimes, I just want to just give you examples. You're talking to someone, a kid asks you a question. In your mind, just say, God, please give me grace. Help me to answer this question well. If there's something that I'm not saying clearly, please clarify it for them later. If you're gonna walk, you're doing a visitation, please, you're gonna go into someone's home, say, Christ, please enter with me. Walk in this home with me. I need you here. I don't know what's gonna happen. There's gonna be parents there, there's gonna be kids there. I don't know what they're gonna say, I don't know what they're gonna do. You're gonna go to a hospital. One time I went to a hospital to visit a friend's father. I didn't know the father well, but I knew the friend. And while I was in the room, the father died. This was like 15 years ago. I didn't know anything. And they're Arabic speaking. So I don't speak Arabic very well. I can understand it, but I don't speak it well. And like the Egyptian way of, like you feel like obligated to express sadness in a very big way, right? As if almost like if you love the person, you're gonna be screaming, right? That's how our culture is sometimes, right? And so of course, everybody's screaming, right? So all I knew to do was to say Abana Lazi, our Father, right? So I just put my hands up, I just said, Abuna didn't come yet. Like Abuna knows what to do, but Abuna wasn't there. So he was coming, he was on his way. And the guy died in the room. So I just put my hands up, I started saying Abana Lazi, right? Our Father, in Arabic. And they just put their hands up and started saying our Father too. And that was it. I don't know if what I did was the best thing, but it was the best I could do, We don't know. You don't know what's going to happen, right? You don't know anything, right? Basically, we don't know anything. God knows. That's why you need to pray, okay? So, and it worked out fine, actually. It was a very difficult time. You can imagine death is a big thing. But you're there. What's the memory? This person was there and they prayed with me when my father died, right? That's very, very important, right? Change in dress. If their dress changes, all of a sudden they used to look a certain way, but now their dress is changing a lot, right? Low energy, fatigue, loss of interest or passion, hopelessness, self-harm, right? By the way, just because this is our last talk, if you are ever concerned, if somebody ever says anything about harming themselves, it is very fine to ask directly about it. Okay, some of us think that, oh, if I ask if they want to hurt themselves, that's going to make them think about it, and it's going to make them want to do it more. It might encourage them, but no, that's not true. That's not how it works. If someone says, oh, I wish I wasn't alive anymore. You say, oh, like I'm sorry to hear that. Like this must be like a really intense situation for you. And then say, have you tried hurting yourself? And sometimes a good way to start any question in general is to just take what they just said and add it to the beginning of your question. You can say, oh, I'm hearing you say that you wish you weren't alive anymore sometimes. Did you think about hurting yourself before? And then if they start saying, like there's other questions that are very important. Have you thought about how you would hurt yourself? Have you tried to hurt yourself before? And then also pay attention. Has someone started to give away some of their possessions? Essentially, like they're starting to say bye. Are they saying bye to people, like in their life? Also, be very careful. If somebody says they want to hurt themselves, please don't go, no, don't do that. God loves you. Don't. That's not how to respond. That's not the point. Okay? Your fear and concern doesn't matter right now. Okay? And if you're starting to see answers that this person actually might harm themselves, please, my beloved brothers and sisters, don't leave them. If you think they are at risk, don't leave them. Okay? Stay with them, right? And go find some additional support. Okay? You can say, oh, okay, look, if you're thinking about hurting yourself, what if we go, do you want to come right now, just come hang out at my home? Or do you want to go to the hospital together? Maybe there's something wrong. What can we do? Stay with them, right? Because we don't know, right? And usually, everything can be solved, okay? It's just sometimes people get very low and they think there's no hope, right? Yes.
I wanted to ask something, because it's something that I feel is happening a lot more now, which is, people are very open about joking about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just jokes, but also a lot of times there's truth behind it. And I feel like people use jokes to mask the truth. They like to say stuff they want to say without it being serious and all that. So how do we turn it serious without ruining the mood?
Yeah. One of the best, so just to make sure I'm following you, sometimes you're with a group of friends and they're just joking around, it's like, bro, dude, I'm depressed all the time, bro. Just like that, and they just say it, right? And then everyone's just kind of just chatting. What you could do, and that's, by the way, that's actually very common. That's actually a common thing that happens. What you can do is find an opportunity, take them on the side, and talk with them. Hey, I know you meant, I'm like, dude, I heard you were saying you're depressed, you feel depressed all the time. I didn't know you were feeling that way. Thanks for saying that. Is there anything we can talk about? So, move forward. Try to find an opportunity, right, to open the discussion with them. But of course, it's probably not going to work in a group, right? Sometimes it happens where, depending on how over time you can develop some group skills and how to kind of influence a group. And somebody could say, I'm depressed, dude, I'm depressed all the time. Be like, dude, and you could start to talk about your own experience to make it now more common and normal and open the discussion in the group, right? But if you can't do that, that's not the goal. The goal is really to connect with them after. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Okay, great. Yes.
Is it the same between nervous breakdown and depression? Are they the same thing or different?
Yeah, I don't think nervous breakdown is something in the manual of disorders, a nervous breakdown. But a nervous breakdown when we say nervous breakdown, it's kind of something we say outside of the professional environment. It could be a panic attack, which comes from anxiety, which is connected with anxiety. Or just kind of there's a specific experience where the person becomes so weighed down by sadness that they kind of almost as if they stop. It's almost when if someone is drowning, there's a period where their heart slows down, their body's trying to conserve oxygen, right? So you could do that even if you're not drowning. Like your body kind of just slows down, stops. Sometimes people can become so depressed they stop speaking, they stop moving much at all. But yeah, depression can definitely cause like a panic attack, right? Because you could become so hopeless. And these two, depression and anxiety, they're very common. They often happen together. Like people can get to very low places, and it's very hard. It's very, very hard, what people go through. So, is that answering your question? Yeah. Yes.
Speaking of like what you said like 2 seconds ago, but is there a difference between a panic attack and an anxiety attack?
I don't think anxiety attack is an actual thing. It is a panic attack.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah. Any other questions? Okay. All right. Good. I'm glad we have questions because there isn't much material. So, and of course, by the way, not every type of self-harm is in a suicide attempt. Okay. I'm telling you that just so to be complete, but take everything very seriously because you don't know. You don't know. Like someone could be cutting themselves to express, it's a way of expressing and managing their own circumstances in an unhealthy way, but it's not a suicide attempt. But you don't need to judge that. Like when you see someone harming themselves, you have to take it very serious, right? How to manage your own depression, and then we'll talk about how to support people who are experiencing depression, and then we'll be done in terms of prepared material, okay? Try to keep doing activities you used to enjoy. One of the main things to help with depression is to force yourself to be active. Okay? Like, it doesn't matter if you want to. You just force yourself to be active. Okay? Stay connected to friends and family. Exercise regularly. Very high correlation with regular exercise and resilience against depression or improvement in depressive symptoms. Stick to regular eating and sleeping habits as much as possible. By the way, I'm telling you now, maybe most of you are not ready to hear this, but our diets are terrible. Okay, we eat badly, right? We're eating basically just very unhealthy food, right? And we think it's just normal to get diabetes, just normal. Like that's just what happens. People just get diabetes. No. We are causing it for ourselves, most of us, right? We're eating unhealthy foods. We feel very heavy. We feel guilty about our diets. It affects the chemistry in our bodies. And so we are becoming weaker on many dimensions because of food, right? We need to eat better, right? So I'm not saying that eating in an unhealthy way is always going to cause depression. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying that if you are feeling very low, your diet might make a big difference if you improve it, right? As well as your sleep. Avoid or cut down on alcohol and don't use illicit drugs, which can make depression worse. These are like just straight facts, right? Get more sunlight. Start a gratitude journal. A gratitude journal is very simply, you write down something you are thankful for. Because what that does is it forces your mind to focus on good things. Because depression, ultimately, deep down, is rooted in a half-truth, which is a lie. Just like anxiety, right? That life is hopeless, which is never true, right? Life is not hopeless. But we start to accept that deception, right? That lie, that half-truth, right? So when you start a gratitude journal, writing forces you, when you have to produce a written statement, you're forcing yourself to think about something good. That's why you should start a gratitude journal. Challenge negative thinking, we spoke about that. Talk to someone you trust about your feelings and seek help from a healthcare provider. Some people are very worried about medication. Medication, for some people, it might be a lifelong thing. And for other people, it might be for a period of time until they do the work they need to do to get out of their depression. So, for example, sometimes I have a client, they're so anxious, we can't even get through like a conversation. They're so anxious, right? Or they're so depressed. So it would be very helpful to have something to lift them out of the depression so we could talk about what we need to talk about. And then the issue is resolved. Like the woman who was dealing with a lot of guilt about her deceased husband, right? If she had medication, it would make her feel happier. We could talk about the guilt. We could work through it. Then the guilt goes away, and then if she comes off the medication, she's not going to fall into depression as easily because there's no guilt anymore, right? You guys get how that works, right? And some people experience very permanent traumatic events. So if you experience like an event that it's now in history, it happened to you, right? And you become very depressed or very anxious, doesn't it make sense that you would find permanent treatment that you would live with? Because what are you going to say to someone, for example, someone who lost all their family members? All of them. What, we're going to say, no, don't take medication, that's not right? They just lost everyone. They have nothing, right? So they might be on medication for the rest of their lives. And they might be fine. They might be okay. Like we have this thing like as if it's like bad. But the only thing I want to say about medication as well, though, is please have a healthcare provider, a medical doctor that you're following up with regularly. Because medications, just like all medications, need to be dosed properly, and there needs to be follow-up, right? Sometimes what's happening is you go to the doctor just gives you some medication, and you don't talk about anything else, right? Or you think that medication alone is going to fix the problem. Usually it's medication with therapy that will help, right? And of course, like we said, community and all the resources we talked about. Okay, this is the last slide. How to support those with depression. Never invalidate someone's sadness. Okay? Do not, like, I was talking to a parent recently, and they were telling me about their young kid. The little kid is like 4 or 5 years old, and they took the kid that whole day. They took them on all these different activities on the weekend, and the kid had a great time. Like at least the kid looked like they had a great time. Like a zoo, an indoor playground, all this other stuff, and a birthday party, everything. And then something bothered the kid, and the kid goes, "Mom, this is the worst day of my life." Yeah. Right? That's what they said. And the parents, you know, they had like an old school mentality, which is not great. Which was, what? I took you here and here and here, and this is the worst day of your life? Do you know what my parents did for me? Like, I would have gone to one of those places once a year, right? You'd go to these places without even asking for them, right? And this is the worst day of your life? All right, we're going home now, right? This is a disaster of a response, right? It's a terrible response, right? Because what are we saying to the kid? Your sadness does not matter. Your emotions, don't believe your own emotions. Also, if you're feeling sad, don't come to me, because I'm going to punish you. You guys see what's going on here? It's terrible, right? It's a terrible thing. You're punishing a child for coming to their own parents and expressing a weak emotion. That's so sad. I'm definitely going to see that kid in therapy when they're an adult, right? So we don't want to be doing that, right? So I'm being a little, like, exaggerating a little bit, but just to make the point. But don't look at anyone and say, oh, like, that's not a big deal, dude. Like, it's not, don't let that bring you down. Unless the only time you can tell someone how to feel is if there is a tremendous amount of trust. Like, and believe me, most of us don't have it. We don't even have it with our spouses, right? Like and not because you're a bad spouse. It's so hard to get to that level of trust, right? It takes a lot of work. So, and I don't mean to use myself as an example many times, but I want to give you some experiences that you might not get yourself right away, which is, I am always in a position where I'm helping people, right? I'm in that position multiple times a day, session after session, after session. I very rarely give advice or tell someone how to feel. Very rarely, right? What you're trying to do is get them to talk about what's going on, have them understand themselves, help them see things in different ways, and maybe if they ask, and very rarely does a client ask, what do you think I should do? They actually don't even ask that often, right? So just be careful about invalidating someone's sadness. Their sadness is their sadness, is their sadness, is their sadness. Do not expect their sadness will go away quickly, right? Be patient. Be very patient. Be very, very patient. Prepare yourself for heavy conversations. And this is the difference. If this was not a servant's retreat, I would be saying, I wouldn't even be showing this slide probably, right? But here we are, and I'm telling you to prepare yourself for heavy conversations. And these conversations can be also not just heavy, but frustrating. Because you're like, dude, we're gonna spend an hour, you're gonna tell me how sad you are, and then that's it? Yeah, that's exactly what you're doing, right? Because the first step is for them to have that connection with you. Don't lose hope, all right? And remember, if you're putting the hope on yourself, that's why you're probably gonna lose hope. Because you think you're gonna solve the problem. But you're not gonna solve the problem. God's gonna be the one to help, right? And you have to bring Christ with you in all these interactions. Stay present and engaged, like I said before. Follow up, show up, be there, right? Suggest higher levels of care in the most appropriate way possible. Just like, for example, because we said you're going to be patient, prepare yourself for heavy conversations. It's not going to be the last conversation. It might not, you see, many people, they say, I don't need to go to a doctor. I don't need to go to a psychiatrist. I don't need to go to a therapist, right? Many people just say that. They just say it flat out in your face, right? And let them say that. Of course, you want to know. And then you could say, oh, what happened the last time you went, or what do you think is going to happen if you go, right? And then maybe another time, maybe 3 or 4 conversations later, you say, hey, I'm noticing that this is not getting any better. Have you thought about trying to talk to someone else or an additional person? Just one nudge up, right? Just talk to an additional person, right? And then maybe they are. And then maybe they talk to someone else, and the professional will recommend medication, and they're going to come back and tell you, no, they recommended medication, but I don't think I need it. They're just going to keep going for another 10 months of this problem. So another month later, you talk about 4 or 5 conversations later, you say, hey, I remember you told me your therapist said that you should consider medication. Have you thought about that, anymore? And see how that goes. You guys see how you're nudging up, right? For some people who are not ready, some people are very opposed, right? And you just nudge up to see if that can help. And encourage the behaviors we mentioned earlier on the prior slide, like being physically active, forcing yourself to go out and be among people, challenging your thoughts, all of those things. All right, so that is actually the end of the prepared material.